The eviction notice felt like ice in Rachel's trembling hands. 72 hours. That's all the time her grandmother had left before losing the only home their family had ever known. The Victorian house on Magnolia Street had sheltered 3 generations of Williams women, through segregation, through struggle, through everything. Now it would fall to a developer's wrecking ball because Rachel couldn't scrape together $20,000. She stood on the courthouse steps, Atlanta's summer heat pressing down like a physical weight, when a sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. The back door opened, and a man emerged, tall, commanding, wrapped in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. Korean features, sharp jawline, eyes that assessed her with unsettling intensity. Rachel Williams. His voice carried an accent that made her name sound exotic. She nodded, confused and wary. I'm Kang Jun-hyuk. I have a proposition that will solve your financial problems. He extended a business card between 2 fingers. But we need to discuss it somewhere private. Rachel stared at the embossed card, her heart hammering. She should walk away, should ignore whatever this dangerous-looking stranger wanted. But desperation makes people do impossible things. I'm listening, she heard herself say. Rachel had worked double shifts at the diner for 3 years, saving every possible dollar. It still wasn't enough. Nothing was ever enough when you were born on the wrong side of the wealth gap, when your family's roots ran deep but your bank account stayed shallow. The coffee shop Jun-hyuk chose was in Buckhead, the kind of place where a cappuccino cost what Rachel spent on groceries for a week. She felt conspicuous in her waitress uniform, the faint smell of fryer grease still clinging to her hair despite the hasty ponytail she twisted it into. Around them, wealthy professionals tapped on laptops, oblivious to the desperation radiating from the corner booth. Jun-hyuk sat across from her with the stillness of a predator. No wasted movement, no nervous energy. His dark eyes tracked her every micro-expression as he laid out his offer with clinical precision. I need a surrogate, he said simply. Someone with no ties to my world, no connections that could be exploited. Someone desperate enough to agree to my terms, but strong enough to see it through. Rachel's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. Excuse me? I'll pay off your family's debt entirely. The house will be yours, free and clear. Additionally, you'll receive $50,000 upon successful delivery. He slid a folder across the table. 9 months of your life in exchange for financial security. It's a business transaction. You want me to have your baby? The words felt surreal leaving her mouth. I want you to carry my child, yes. I've had you investigated, Ms. Williams. You're healthy, responsible, no criminal record. You work 70-hour weeks trying to support your grandmother and younger brother. You're exactly what I need. The casual mention of investigation should have terrified her. Instead, Rachel felt a strange calm settle over her shoulders. This man had researched her life, knew her struggles, and somehow that made this insane offer feel almost reasonable. Why me? Why not use an agency? For the first time, something flickered behind Jun-hyuk's controlled expression. Agencies ask questions. They create paper trails. My world doesn't allow for that kind of exposure. He leaned forward slightly. I need discretion above all else. You need money. We can help each other. Rachel opened the folder. The contract was thorough. Medical care at the finest private clinic. Living arrangements, financial compensation broken down to the last cent. At the bottom, a number that would change everything. $70,000 total, plus the house debt cleared. I have enemies, Ms. Williams. People who would use a child as leverage against me. That's why this must remain completely confidential. You would carry the child, deliver it, and walk away. No custody, no ongoing connection. Clean break. That's... Rachel struggled to find words. That's cold. That's survival. Jun-hyuk's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. In my world, attachment is weakness. Love is a liability. This child will be protected precisely because no one will know about you. Rachel thought of Victoria, her grandmother, who'd raised her after Rachel's mother died. Thought of Brandon, her 17-year-old brother with college dreams and no college fund. Thought of the house on Magnolia Street, where her great-grandmother had taught her to make cornbread from scratch, where family photos lined every wall, where their history lived in every creaking floorboard. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. Jun-hyuk stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced efficiency. After that, I find someone else, and your family loses their home. He walked away without looking back, leaving Rachel alone with the contract and the weight of an impossible choice. That evening, Rachel sat on the porch swing of the house she was trying to save. The wood had been painted and repainted a dozen times over the decades, layers of family history in every brushstroke. Victoria brought out sweet tea in the same pitcher they'd used for Sunday dinners since Rachel was small. "You're carrying something heavy, baby girl." Her grandmother settled beside her with a soft groan. At 78, Victoria Williams still had the sharp eyes of a woman who'd survived Mississippi in the 50s and raised a family through decades of change. "Just work stress, Grandma." Victoria sipped her tea knowingly. "You forget I changed your diapers. I know when you're holding back." Rachel wanted to tell her everything, wanted to ask advice from the woman who'd navigated impossible situations her entire life. But how could she explain that a stranger wanted to pay her to carry his child? How could she make that sound like anything other than what it was? Desperate and dangerous. "What would you do?" Rachel asked carefully. "If you had to make a choice between your pride and your family?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment, watching fireflies blink in the gathering dusk. "Pride's a luxury, Rachel. Love is a necessity. Your great-grandmother cleaned white folks' houses on her knees so her children could go to school. Your mother worked 3 jobs so you could have better. We do what we must for family. That's not shame, that's strength." The words settled into Rachel's bones like a benediction, or maybe a warning. The next morning, Rachel called the number on Jun Hyuk's card. A smooth-voiced woman answered, scheduled an appointment, and ended the call in under 30 seconds. Professional, efficient, terrifying. The office building was downtown, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. The elevator required a key card to access the top floor. When the doors opened, Park Sang-hyun waited, Jun Hyuk's right-hand man, though Rachel didn't know that yet. He was stocky, alert, with the bearing of someone who'd seen violence up close. "Ms. Williams, this way." Jun Hyuk's office occupied the entire corner of the building, with views stretching across Atlanta's skyline. The space was minimalist. Black leather, chrome accents, not a single personal item visible. Behind the massive desk, Jun Hyuk stood with his back to her, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. When he turned, his expression gave nothing away. "You've made your decision. I have conditions." Rachel's voice came out steadier than she felt. One eyebrow rose fractionally. "Go on. My grandmother and brother never know the real reason for the money. We tell them I got a bonus at work or a grant, something believable. And I want medical records, proof that you're healthy, that there's no genetic issues I should know about. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it informed. Reasonable." Jun Hyuk moved to his desk, retrieved another folder. "My medical history. Clean blood work. No hereditary conditions. I anticipated you'd ask." Rachel took the folder, impressed despite herself. This man thought 3 steps ahead. "The pregnancy will be achieved through IVF," Jun Hyuk continued. "No physical contact beyond medical necessity. You'll move into a secured apartment I own in Midtown for the duration. Your living expenses will be covered. Once you begin showing, we'll create a cover story about you taking a work sabbatical or family leave. What about doctor visits? People will ask questions. Dr. Ji-hai runs a private clinic. Complete discretion is her specialty. She handles medical matters for individuals who value privacy," which meant she worked for criminals, Rachel realized. The full weight of what she was agreeing to pressed down on her shoulders. This wasn't just carrying a baby. This was stepping into a world she didn't understand, governed by rules she didn't know. "Why don't you have a wife?" The question escaped before Rachel could stop it. "Someone in your social circle who could do this normally?" Jun Hyuk's expression hardened. "Marriage in my world is a strategic alliance, not a romantic gesture. I have no interest in binding myself to someone who wants access to my power. This arrangement is cleaner." "Cleaner," Rachel repeated, tasting the coldness of the word. "Safer," Jun Hyuk corrected, and for just a moment something almost human flickered across his face. "For everyone involved." Rachel took a deep breath, thinking of Victoria on the porch swing, of Brandon's college applications, of the house that held their history. She picked up the pen Jun Hyuk offered. "Where do I sign?" The IVF procedure happened quickly. Dr. Ji-hai was a small, efficient woman in her 40s who asked no personal questions and offered no judgments. The clinic was tucked away in a renovated brownstone, unmarked and exclusive. "The embryo transfer will be scheduled in 2 weeks," Dr. Ji-hai explained, reviewing Rachel's hormone levels. "Your body is responding well to the medications. Jun Hyuk-si has excellent genetic markers. This should be successful." Rachel lay on the examination table, staring at the ceiling tiles, trying not to think about the surreal nature of what she was doing, trying not to wonder what kind of child would come from this cold, contractual arrangement. "You're nervous," Dr. Jihai observed. That's normal. But you should know Junhyuk-si chose you very carefully. He doesn't make careless decisions. He chose me because I'm desperate and disposable. He chose you because you're strong. Dr. Jihi met her eyes directly. There's a difference. 2 weeks later, Rachel moved into the Midtown apartment. It was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furnishings, a kitchen larger than the entire downstairs of the Magnolia Street house. It felt like a gilded cage. Junhyuk appeared the evening of her move-in, carrying a tablet. Security protocols, he explained, showing her the building's systems. Doorman is named Aaron, former military, completely trustworthy. Building cameras cover all entry points. You have my direct number. Any concerns, you call immediately. You really think someone might come after me? I think precaution is cheaper than regret. Junhyuk set the tablet down, and Rachel noticed his hands. Long fingers, a thin scar across his left knuckle. Hands that had probably done terrible things in service of his empire. The embryo transfer is tomorrow, she said quietly. After that, there's no going back. After that, your family keeps their home. That's what matters, isn't it? Rachel wanted to hate him for reducing it to such simple terms, but he was right. That's exactly what mattered. Everything else, the strangeness, the fear, the moral ambiguity, all of it was secondary to saving the people she loved. Why do you want a child? The question emerged soft, vulnerable. If you don't want a wife, don't want attachment, why this? Junhyuk was silent so long Rachel thought he wouldn't answer. Then, legacy. In my position, having an heir is necessary. But more than that. He paused, jaw working as if the words physically pained him. My father built an empire through violence and fear. I want something different for my child. A life free from this world's darkness. That requires distance, requires sacrifice. It was the most honest thing he'd said to her. Rachel saw the ghost of something in his expression. Grief, maybe, or regret. A glimpse of the human beneath the controlled exterior. That's almost noble, she said, in a twisted way. There's nothing noble about me, Ms. Williams. Junhyuk moved toward the door. But I protect what's mine. Remember that. He left and Rachel stood alone in her beautiful cage, wondering what she'd truly agreed to. The next morning, Dr. Jihai performed the embryo transfer with practiced efficiency. Rachel lay still, trying to imagine the microscopic cluster of cells that might become a life. Junhyuk's child. Her responsibility for 9 months, then gone. Rest for today, Dr. Jihai instructed. We'll know in 2 weeks if it takes. Those 2 weeks stretched like years. Rachel worked her shifts at the diner, maintained normalcy for Victoria and Brandon, and tried not to obsess over every twinge in her body. The waiting was agony. When her phone rang with Dr. Jihai's number, Rachel's hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. Congratulations, Rachel, you're pregnant. The first trimester passed in a haze of morning sickness and secret-keeping. Rachel perfected the art of lying to the people she loved, fabricating a promotion at work to explain her improved finances, claiming the new apartment was a company perk. Victoria seemed suspicious, but didn't push, which was almost worse than direct questions. Junhyuk maintained his distance, checking in weekly through Sang-hyun rather than appearing personally. Rachel told herself she was relieved. The less she saw of him, the easier it was to pretend this was just a medical situation, not a life growing inside her that belonged to a dangerous man. But at week 12, everything changed. Rachel was leaving her OB appointment at Dr. Jihai's clinic when a black SUV pulled up alongside her on the quiet street. The window rolled down, and a man she didn't recognize leaned out. White, 40s, expensive suit, cold eyes. Rachel Williams. You're looking healthy these days. Every instinct screamed danger. Rachel walked faster. Must be nice having a rich benefactor. The SUV kept pace. Makes a girl wonder what kind of services you're providing to afford that midtown apartment. Rachel broke into a run. Behind her, car doors opened. Footsteps pounded pavement. She fumbled for her phone, hit Junhyuk's number with shaking fingers. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Someone's following me. A hand grabbed her shoulder, spinning her around. Then chaos. The phone fell from her grip as 2 men surrounded her. One grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. The other reached for her purse. Rachel fought, kicking, screaming, terror flooding her system because she was pregnant. She was carrying Junhyuk's child, and these men were going to hurt her. A roar of engines, screeching tires. Suddenly Sang-hyun was there, moving with lethal efficiency. He dropped one man with a brutal punch, pivoted to slam the other against the SUV's hood. More men poured from vehicles that appeared from nowhere. Junhyuk's security team, Rachel realized dimly. And then Junhyuk himself, exploding from a Mercedes like controlled fury. His face was transformed. No trace of the cold businessman remained. This was something primal, terrifying. He crossed to Rachel in 3 strides, hands framing her face with surprising gentleness, even as rage blazed in his eyes. "Did they hurt you? Answer me. Did they touch you?" Rachel couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but shake her head. Junhyuk's thumb brushed across her cheekbone, checking for injuries, she realized, or maybe just reassuring himself she was real. "Get them out of my sight," he snapped at Sang-hyun, still holding Rachel's face. "Find out who sent them, and make it clear what happens to people who touch what's mine." The threat in those words should have frightened her. Instead, Rachel felt something unexpected. Safety. This dangerous man's protection wrapping around her like armor. Junhyuk insisted on driving her home himself. The Mercedes was silent, except for Rachel's unsteady breathing. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those men's faces, felt their hands grabbing her. "They were after you, weren't they?" She finally broke the silence. "This was about getting to you through me." Junhyuk's jaw clenched, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Alexander Castellano. He owns half the development rights in Atlanta and wants the other half. He's been making moves against my territory." Territory. Rachel laughed, slightly hysterical. "You talk about the city like it's a game board." "It is a game board, one where pieces get destroyed if they're not properly protected." He pulled into her building's garage, killed the engine. "This is my fault. I should have anticipated he'd investigate anyone connected to me, should have provided closer security. I'm not a piece, Junhyuk. I'm a person, a pregnant person carrying your child who almost got hurt because of your business." The words hung between them, heavy with accusation. Junhyuk turned to face her fully, and Rachel saw something raw in his expression. Fear, she realized. He'd been terrified. "I know what you are," he said quietly. "That's the problem." Before Rachel could process that statement, he was out of the car, opening her door, one hand supporting her elbow as she stood. His touch was careful, controlled, but she felt the tension vibrating through him. "Pack a bag," he said. "You're not staying here alone. I have building security." Building security didn't stop them from learning your routine and ambushing you in broad daylight. Pack a bag. Each word clipped, final. The voice of a man who gave orders and expected obedience. Rachel wanted to argue, wanted to assert her independence, prove she wasn't some helpless damsel, but her hands were still shaking, and the baby, she pressed a palm to her barely there bump, the baby needed to be safe. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere Castellano can't find you." Junhyuk's estate was in the suburbs, hidden behind walls and security gates that would have looked at home, protecting a military installation. The house itself was modern, all clean lines and strategic windows, beautiful in an austere way. "Guest wing is on the 2nd floor, Junhyuk said, leading her through spaces that echoed with emptiness. "Sang-hyun will bring your things from the apartment. Dr. Ji-hai will make house calls for your appointments. You'll be safe here." "How long?" Rachel asked, following him up a curved staircase. "Until I eliminate the threat." The casual way he said it, eliminate, sent a chill down her spine. This was his reality. Problems didn't get resolved through negotiation or legal channels. They got eliminated. The guest suite was larger than her entire childhood bedroom, decorated in soothing neutrals with an ensuite bathroom and a balcony overlooking manicured gardens. It should have felt like luxury. Instead, it felt like house arrest. "There are guards on the property at all times," Junhyuk continued. "Don't leave without escort. Don't answer the door. And don't—" He trailed off, something complicated crossing his face. "Don't what?" "Don't trust anyone. Not the staff, not visitors. No one except Sang-hyun and Dr. Ji-hai. In my world, betrayal comes from expected places." Rachel sank onto the bed, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her hollow and shaky. "This isn't what I signed up for." "No." Junhyuk crouched in front of her, bringing himself to eye level. "It isn't, and I'm sorry for that. But I will keep you safe, Rachel. Both of you. That's a promise." The use of her first name startled her. He'd been so careful to maintain distance, calling her Ms. Williams like she was just another business transaction. But now, with his dark eyes fixed on hers with unsettling intensity, she didn't feel like a transaction at all. She felt seen, valued, protected. Dangerous feelings, all of them. Living in Junhyuk's house revealed sides of him Rachel hadn't anticipated. He was up before dawn, already dressed in workout clothes when she made her way to the kitchen that first morning. Apparently, the estate had a full gym that he used religiously. Coffee? He offered, then paused. Right. Caffeine. Tea. The fact that he'd remembered her pregnancy restrictions was oddly touching. Rachel accepted the herbal blend he prepared, watching as he moved through the kitchen with surprising competence. You cook? She asked. I survive. There's a difference. Jun-hyuk set a plate of fruit and toast in front of her. Dr. Ji-hee sent a nutrition plan, said you need to eat more. Dr. Ji-hee needs to mind her business. The corner of Jun-hyuk's mouth twitched, the closest thing to a smile Rachel had seen from him. She does. That's why I hired her. They fell into an uneasy routine. Jun-hyuk worked from home most days, installed in an office on the first floor with multiple monitors and phone calls in 3 languages. Sang-hyun was a constant presence, appearing at odd hours with updates Rachel wasn't privy to. She tried to maintain her old life remotely, video calls with Victoria and Brandon, texts with Chloe, her best friend, who knew something was off but didn't push. But the reality was she was living in a mansion with a mobster, carrying his child, hiding from his enemies. It was surreal, isolating, and somehow, as the days passed, less frightening than it should have been. You're staring, Jun-hyuk said one evening. They'd fallen into the habit of eating dinner together, him at his usual spot at the dining table, her across from him, the vast space somehow feeling less empty with another person present. I'm trying to figure you out, Rachel admitted. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. More villainous? You run a criminal empire, but you eat vegetables and fold your napkins and say please and thank you. Jun-hyuk's expression darkened. Don't romanticize what I do, Rachel. The manners don't make me less dangerous. If anything, they make me more so. Because people underestimate you? Because I never forget I'm a monster, even when I'm pretending to be civilized. The raw honesty of it silenced her. Jun-hyuk stood abruptly, carried his plate to the kitchen. When he returned, his mask was back in place, controlled, distant, unreadable. But Rachel had seen beneath it, and now she couldn't unsee. That night, she woke to sounds from downstairs. Voices raised in Korean, rapid and tense. She shouldn't investigate, should stay in her room like a good houseguest. But curiosity and concern pulled her from bed. The office door was cracked open. Through it, Rachel saw Jun-hyuk with Sang-hyun and 2 other men she didn't recognize. A laptop displayed what looked like security footage. Jun-hyuk's posture was rigid, his voice when he spoke, carrying an edge she'd never heard before. I don't care about his connections. He came after her, that can't stand. Boss, if we move against Castellano directly, it escalates everything. The truce with the other families is irrelevant if I look weak. She's under my protection. Everyone needs to understand what that means. Rachel's hand moved unconsciously to her stomach. The baby fluttered. First real movement she'd felt, as if responding to Jun-hyuk's declaration. She retreated to her room before anyone spotted her, but sleep was impossible. Jun-hyuk was planning retaliation. Because of her. Because men had threatened her on a public street, and in his world, that required a response. The weight of it was overwhelming. At week 16, Rachel's body began showing changes that couldn't be hidden under loose clothing anymore. Dr. Ji-hye confirmed everything was progressing perfectly. The baby was healthy, growing right on schedule, heartbeat strong. Rachel should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt the reality settling deeper into her bones. This was real. There was a tiny human inside her, Jun-hyuk's child, growing stronger every day. In 5 months, she'd hand this baby over and walk away. The thought created an ache she hadn't anticipated. You're thinking too much, Jun-hyuk observed. They were in the garden, one of Rachel's refugees when the house felt too confining. He'd found her on a bench, staring at the koi pond without really seeing it. How can you tell? Your forehead gets these little lines right here. He gestured vaguely at his own face. Sang-hyun calls it your worried expression. Sang-hyun talks about me? Everyone talks about you. You're the most interesting thing that's happened around here in years. Jun-hyuk settled beside her, maintaining careful distance. He always did that, stayed just far enough away that they never accidentally touched. I felt the baby move yesterday, Rachel said quietly. During your meeting. Jun-hyuk went very still. And it made everything real in a way it hasn't been before. This isn't theoretical anymore, there's a person in there. She looked at him directly. Your son or daughter? Don't you want to know which? Dr. Ji-hye offered to tell me. I declined. Why? Jun-hyuk's jaw worked, that telltale sign of internal struggle. Because knowing makes it harder to maintain necessary distance. The baby is safer if I stay detached. That's the coldest thing you've ever said to me. That's the truth. But his voice lacked conviction. Jun-hyuk stood abruptly, hands shoved in his pockets. I need to check in with Sang-hyun. Don't stay out too long. The temperature's dropping. He fled. That's what it was. A full retreat from a conversation that came too close to something vulnerable. Rachel watched him go, frustration and unexpected sympathy warring in her chest. Chloe called that afternoon, her voice tight with worry. Rach, you haven't been at the diner in weeks. Victoria says you're on some kind of work sabbatical, but that doesn't make sense. What's really going on? Rachel closed her eyes, hating the lies but unable to stop them. It's complicated. Are you in trouble? Because if you need help, I'm fine, I promise. Just dealing with some personal stuff. I'll explain everything eventually. Eventually better come soon, girl. I miss your face. After the call ended, Rachel felt the isolation more keenly than ever. She was living in a bubble, separated from everything familiar, growing closer to a man she shouldn't trust and carrying a baby she'd have to give away. It was unsustainable. That evening she found Jun-hyuk in his office, staring at monitors displaying what looked like financial reports. He didn't acknowledge her presence immediately, but the slight tension in his shoulders said he knew she was there. We need to talk about what happens after, Rachel said. After the birth? We've discussed that. You'll receive your payment and return to... I mean really talk about it, not the legal terms. The reality. Rachel moved closer, saw Jun-hyuk's fingers tighten on his pen. I'm going to hand you a baby I carried for 9 months, and you're going to raise that child alone, in this world, surrounded by people who want to hurt you. How is that supposed to work? Jun-hyuk finally looked at her. Carefully. That's not good enough. It's all I have. He stood, and the mask cracked just slightly. Do you think I haven't thought about this? Every day I see you here, see the pregnancy progressing, and I think about the future. About a child growing up in my shadow, about whether I'm condemning them to the same emptiness I've known. Then change it. Be different. I don't know how to be different. The admission was raw, almost angry. My father taught me that love is weakness, that attachment creates vulnerability. Every person I've cared about has either betrayed me or been used against me, so I learned not to care. And now you're asking me to unlearn 35 years of survival instincts for a child I've never met. Rachel's breath caught at the pain in his voice. She'd seen glimpses of the man beneath the armor, but this was something deeper, a window into real fear. Your father was wrong, she said softly. Love isn't weakness. It's the hardest, strongest thing humans do. Easy to say when you come from a family that loves each other. Jun-hyuk's voice turned bitter. My mother died giving birth to me. My father blamed me for it, spent my entire childhood making sure I knew I'd killed her. The only thing he ever taught me was how to survive. Rachel's heart cracked. Jun-hyuk, don't. He held up a hand, walls slamming back into place. Don't pity me. I made my choices, built my life. This is who I am. But it doesn't have to be who you stay. For a long moment, they stared at each other across the desk. Rachel saw the war happening behind Jun-hyuk's eyes, between ingrained defense mechanisms and something newer, more vulnerable. Then Sang-hyun appeared in the doorway. Boss? We have a situation. The moment shattered. Jun-hyuk's expression went cold and professional. What kind? Castellano's making moves. He hit one of our distribution points in Decatur. 2 men injured, product seized. Jun-hyuk's hands clenched into fists. Rachel saw the transformation. Businessman to crime lord in seconds. Assemble the team, we're responding tonight. Jun-hyuk, wait, Rachel started. Stay here. Sang-hyun, assign extra security to the house. No one in or out except approved personnel. He was already moving, pulling on a jacket that probably concealed weapons Rachel didn't want to think about. You're going to do something violent, Rachel said flatly. Jun-hyuk paused at the door. I'm going to do what's necessary to protect what's mine. That includes you and the baby, remember that. Then he was gone, leaving Rachel alone with Sang-hyun and a gnawing fear in her gut. Jun-hyuk didn't return until after midnight. Rachel heard the cars, the low voices, the careful footsteps. She shouldn't have been awake, waiting in the darkened living room, but sleep was impossible while he was out there doing God knows what in retaliation for an attack that happened because of her. When Jun-hyuk finally entered, he looked exhausted. There was blood on his shirt. Not much, just a spray across the shoulder. His knuckles were raw. He froze when he spotted Rachel curled in the armchair. You should be sleeping. So should you. But here we are. Rachel stood, moved closer. Are you hurt? It's not my blood. That should have frightened her. Instead, Rachel felt her heart twist with concern. Sit down. Let me at least clean your hands. Rachel, please. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe something had shifted during tonight's violence, but Jun-hyuk obeyed. He sat heavily on the couch while Rachel retrieved first aid supplies from the kitchen. His hands were steady as she cleaned the torn skin, applied antiseptic. But his eyes were haunted, distant. Rachel worked in silence, trying not to think about what those hands had done tonight. I killed a man, Jun-hyuk said suddenly. Not Castellano. I'm not stupid enough to escalate that far yet, but one of his lieutenants, the one who gave the order to target you. Rachel's hands stilled. Why are you telling me this? Because you should know what I am, what you're entangled with. He met her eyes, his gaze bleak. I put a bullet in his skull without hesitation. Felt nothing except satisfaction that the threat was eliminated. That's the man carrying my child. That's who you're doing this for. That's not all you are. It's enough. Rachel finished bandaging his knuckles but didn't release his hands. You could have ignored the attack on me, could have hired better security and left it at that, but you didn't. You went out there yourself, put yourself at risk, because someone threatened me. That's not nothing, Jun-hyuk. That's possession, not... He cut himself off, jaw clenching. Not what? Rachel pushed. Say it. Not love. The word came out strangled. I don't know how to love, Rachel. I only know how to own, how to protect, how to destroy threats to what's mine. If that's all I have to offer this child, God help them. Rachel's eyes burned with unexpected tears. The vulnerability in his confession, the rawness of his fear. It was more honest than anything he'd shown her before. Then learn, she whispered. You have 5 months. Learn how to be more than what your father made you. Jun-hyuk's thumb brushed across her knuckles. Unconscious gesture, barely there. But Rachel felt it like electricity. Felt the walls between them crumbling in ways that terrified and thrilled her simultaneously. I don't know if I can. Try. For your child's sake. Try. Something shifted in Jun-hyuk's expression. He pulled his hands back slowly, stood, put distance between them, but the mask didn't quite resettle. Rachel had seen too much, and they both knew it. Get some sleep, he said roughly. Tomorrow Dr. Ji-hai wants to do another ultrasound. Make sure tonight's stress didn't affect the baby. He left her there, but Rachel didn't feel alone. She felt the fragile beginning of something neither of them had planned for. Something that could save them both, or destroy everything. Week 20 brought the anatomy scan. Dr. Ji-hai set up her portable ultrasound equipment in one of the estate's spare rooms, transforming it into a makeshift clinic. Rachel lay on the medical table, gel cool on her exposed belly, trying not to feel vulnerable. Jun-hyuk stood by the window, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He'd insisted on being present. Security protocols, he'd claimed, but Rachel suspected it was something more. Everything looks perfect, Dr. Ji-hai announced, moving the wand across Rachel's stomach. Strong heartbeat, all organs developing normally. Would you like to know the sex? Rachel looked at Jun-hyuk. He was staring at the monitor with an intensity that made her chest ache. Jun-hyuk, your call. For a long moment he didn't respond. Then so quietly Rachel almost missed it. Yes. Dr. Ji-hai smiled. Congratulations. It's a girl. The air in the room changed. Jun-hyuk's entire body went rigid, something raw and terrified flickering across his face before he locked it down. But Rachel had seen it. The panic, the wonder, the absolute terror of a man realizing his daughter would enter the same dangerous world that had broken him. Excuse me. Jun-hyuk left abruptly, door closing with controlled precision behind him. Dr. Ji-hai cleaned the gel from Rachel's stomach with practiced efficiency. He's scared. I know. Good scared. The kind that means he's starting to feel something. Dr. Ji-hai met Rachel's eyes directly. Be careful, Rachel. This wasn't supposed to get complicated. But it was already complicated. Had been from the moment Jun-hyuk's enemies targeted her, from the first time he'd shown vulnerability, from every late-night conversation and shared meal and careful distance that somehow felt more intimate than touching. Rachel found him in the garden, standing by the koi pond with his hands shoved deep in his pockets. The afternoon sun cast shadows across his face, highlighting the tension in his jaw. A girl, he said without turning. I don't know anything about raising a daughter. Most first-time parents don't know anything about raising kids, period. That's what learning is for. In my world, girls are, Jun-hyuk's voice roughened, targets, leverage, tools for arranged marriages and strategic alliances. My father had a daughter before me. From a previous relationship, I never met her. She was married off to strengthen a business connection when she was barely 20. Rachel's stomach turned. That won't happen to your daughter. How can I promise that? How can I keep her safe when everything about my life makes her vulnerable? He finally faced her, and Rachel saw naked fear in his expression. What if I become my father? What if I'm incapable of being anything better? Then we make sure you learn to be better starting now. Jun-hyuk laughed bitterly. We? As if you'll be around for this. The words hit like a physical blow, because he was right. In 4 months, Rachel would deliver this baby girl and walk away. That was the agreement. That was what she'd signed up for. So why did the thought of leaving feel impossible? Jun-hyuk! A sudden crash from the house cut her off. Glass shattering, alarms blaring. Sang-hyun appeared on the patio, weapon drawn. Get inside. Now. Jun-hyuk moved instantly, one arm around Rachel's shoulders, bodily propelling her toward the house. But they'd barely made it 5 steps when men in dark clothing emerged from the tree line. 4 of them, weapons raised, professional and coordinated. Down! Sang-hyun fired, providing cover as Jun-hyuk shoved Rachel behind a stone planter. More gunfire erupted. Estate security engaging the intruders, chaos erupting across the peaceful garden. Rachel's hands covered her stomach instinctively, protecting the baby even as fear flooded her system. Jun-hyuk's body covered hers, pressing her against the planter, his heartbeat thundering against her back. Stay down, he growled in her ear. Whatever happens, stay down. Jun-hyuk, your security team can handle themselves. You're my priority. More gunfire. Shouting in Korean and English, the acrid smell of discharged weapons burning Rachel's nostrils. She'd never been this close to violence before, never understood how loud it was, how visceral. Then silence, sudden and deafening. Clear, Sang-hyun's voice. All intruders down. Boss, we need to move her. Jun-hyuk pulled back slowly, hands framing Rachel's face as he checked her for injuries. Are you hurt? Rachel, look at me. Are you hurt? No, just scared. Her voice shook. The baby is fine. You're both fine. I've got you. Jun-hyuk lifted her like she weighed nothing, carrying her inside while Sang-hyun and security swept the grounds. Dr. Ji-hye arrived within 30 minutes, summoned by emergency protocols. She examined Rachel thoroughly while Jun-hyuk paced the room like a caged animal, blood on his hands again. Someone else's, Rachel assumed, from the way Sang-hyun had quietly bandaged Jun-hyuk's forearm. Baby's heartbeat is strong, Dr. Ji-hye confirmed. No signs of distress, but Rachel, you need to rest. Stress isn't good for the pregnancy. Stress? Rachel laughed, slightly hysterical. Right, I'll just relax while assassins attack the house. They weren't assassins, Jun-hyuk said flatly. They were contractors. Castellano hired professionals to send a message. What message? Rachel demanded. That he can reach me anywhere? That he can kill me and your baby whenever he wants? That I'm vulnerable, Jun-hyuk's voice was ice. That having something to protect makes me weak. He's wrong. The absolute certainty in those words silenced the room. Jun-hyuk moved to Rachel's side, knelt so they were eye level. This ends tonight. I'm calling a meeting with the other families. Castellano crossed lines that can't be uncrossed. There will be consequences. You mean war? Rachel's hand found his. Don't, please. There has to be another way. There isn't. Not anymore. But Jun-hyuk's fingers tightened around hers, betraying emotion he couldn't voice. He went after you, after my daughter. That's unforgivable. Then let me leave. I'll go back to my grandmother's house. Disappear. If I'm not here, I'm not a target. You think he doesn't know about Victoria? About Brandon? About everyone you love? Jun-hyuk's expression turned savage. Leaving makes you more vulnerable, not less. Here, under my protection, you're safe. Out there, you're exposed. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. There's a difference. Dr. Ji-hye cleared her throat. I'll leave you two to discuss. Rachel, try to get some rest. Call me if you have any concerns. She slipped out, leaving them alone. Rachel pulled her hand free, suddenly exhausted and overwhelmed. This isn't sustainable. Living like this, waiting for the next attack. Your daughter deserves better than a life of constant danger. I know. Jun-hyuk's voice cracked. God, Rachel, I know. But I don't know how to give her anything different. This is all I have. Then figure it out. Because I'm not bringing a baby into this world just to watch her grow up scared. She left him there, retreated to her room, and for the first time since moving into the estate, Rachel let herself cry. For the baby girl growing inside her, for Jun-hyuk trapped by his father's legacy, for herself caught in a situation that had spiraled far beyond a simple business arrangement. That night, Rachel woke to soft sounds from the hallway. She opened her door carefully. found Jun Hyuk sitting on the floor outside her room, back against the wall, eyes closed. He looked exhausted, defeated in a way she'd never seen. "What are you doing?" Jun Hyuk's eyes opened. "Making sure you're safe. You have a security team for that. I needed—" He trailed off, jaw working. "I needed to be here, close enough that if something happens, I can—" His voice broke. "I can't lose you, Rachel. Either of you." The confession hung between them, heavy with implications neither could address. Rachel sank down beside him, their shoulders touching in the dim hallway. "Jun Hyuk, when this started it was supposed to be simple. A business transaction. But it's not simple anymore, is it?" "No." His hand found hers in the darkness. "It stopped being simple the moment I saw you fight back against those men. When you refused to be intimidated despite being terrified. When you started making me think about who I want to be instead of who I've always been." Rachel's breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't know how to do this. How to be what you need, what she needs. But I want to try. For the first time in my life, I want to be better than what I am." She squeezed his hand, feeling the tremor in his fingers. "Then start by stopping this war. Find another way to deal with Castellano. Show your daughter that her father can be strong without being violent. And if that makes me look weak, if other families see it as an opportunity to strike, then you prove that strength isn't just about who can be the most brutal. It's about who can be the most strategic, the most controlled." Rachel turned to face him fully. "You're smarter than them, Jun Hyuk. Stop playing their game and make them play yours." Something flickered in Jun Hyuk's expression. Hope, maybe, or the fragile beginning of belief. "You have too much faith in me. Someone has to." Rachel rested her head against his shoulder, feeling him tense, then gradually relax. "Your daughter deserves a father who fights for her without destroying everything around him." They sat in silence, hands linked, while the house settled into pre-dawn quiet around them. Rachel felt the baby flutter inside her. Strong movements now, undeniable life. "She's active," Rachel murmured. Jun Hyuk's free hand hovered over Rachel's stomach. "Can I—" Rachel guided his palm to where the baby was kicking. Jun Hyuk went absolutely still, wonder transforming his features as he felt his daughter move for the first time. "She's real," he whispered. "She's always been real. You just weren't letting yourself feel it." Jun Hyuk's hand stayed where it was, his thumb making small circles over Rachel's bump. "I'm terrified," he admitted, "of failing her, of becoming my father, of loving her and having that love turn into the weapon everyone uses against me. Love isn't a weapon. It's armor." Rachel covered his hand with hers. "You'll figure that out." In that moment, sitting in a hallway at 4 in the morning, feeling his daughter move under their joined hands, Jun Hyuk looked almost peaceful, like he could imagine a future that didn't end in violence and loss, like he could imagine becoming the father this baby girl deserved. The meeting with the families happened 3 days later in neutral territory, a private room at a restaurant that had hosted such gatherings for decades. Jun Hyuk, dressed in a charcoal suit that made him look simultaneously more civilized and more dangerous. He'd tried to convince Rachel to stay at the estate, but she'd insisted on coming. "If this is about protecting me and your daughter, I should be there. They need to see what they're actually threatening." Sang-hyun had arranged elaborate security. Rachel waited in an adjacent room with Dr. Ji-hai, close enough to hear but safely separated. Through a one-way mirror, she watched Jun Hyuk face off against the power players of Atlanta's underworld. Castellano was there, the man whose decisions had turned Rachel's life upside down. He was handsome in a cold way, older than Jun Hyuk, with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. When he spotted Jun Hyuk, his smile was mocking. "Kang, heard you've been having security problems. Must be difficult, trying to protect civilians who wander into our business." Jun Hyuk's expression remained neutral. "Alexander, thank you for accepting this meeting. I wanted to discuss boundaries." "Boundaries?" Castellano laughed. "You're the one expanding into my territory. Don't talk to me about boundaries. Your development deals don't give you carte blanche to target non-combatants." Jun Hyuk's voice stayed level. "Rachel Williams is carrying my child. She's not involved in our business. Attacking her violates agreements that have kept this city stable for years." "Your child?" Castellano's eyebrows rose. "That's news. Tell me, Kang, does the mother know she's just an incubator? Or did you promise her something more?" Rachel saw Jun Hyuk's hands clench under the table, but his voice remained controlled. "She knows exactly what our arrangement is, which makes your attacks even less justified. She's not leverage, she's a civilian. A civilian living in your estate under your protection. That makes her a legitimate target. Then I'm prepared to offer a deal. Jun Hyuk leaned forward. You want the Marietta development rights. I'll cede them. In exchange, you back off anyone connected to Rachel Williams. Her family, her friends, completely off limits. The room went silent. Rachel's heart stuttered. Those development rights were worth millions. She'd heard Sang Hyun mention them. Jun Hyuk was giving up a major asset. For her. For their daughter. You'd cede territory for one woman? Castellano looked genuinely surprised. I'd cede territory for peace. The last 3 weeks have been costly for both of us. We've lost men, money, stability. Over what? Ego? Jun Hyuk straightened. I'm offering a way out that leaves us both with dignity. Take it. An older man, one of the family heads Rachel didn't recognize, spoke up. Kang's right. This feud has been bad for everyone. Castellano, accept the deal. You get what you wanted. He gets his woman and child protected. We all move forward. Rachel watched the calculation happen behind Castellano's eyes, pride warring with pragmatism. Finally, he nodded slowly. Fine. But the woman stays away from business operations. Any whiff of her involvement and all bets are off. Agreed. Jun Hyuk extended his hand. After a tense moment, Castellano shook it. The meeting concluded with formal agreements and tense pleasantries. When Jun Hyuk finally entered the adjacent room, Rachel saw the exhaustion in every line of his body. You gave up the Marietta deal, she said quietly. It was a good trade. It was a fortune. Jun Hyuk met her eyes directly. You're worth more. The words hung between them, loaded with meaning neither could fully articulate. Dr. Ji-hai excused herself tactfully, leaving them alone. Jun Hyuk, that wasn't part of our arrangement. You didn't have to— Yes, I did. He moved closer, hands hovering near her shoulders but not quite touching. Because somewhere between hiring you and watching you fight for your family, between you moving into my home and feeling my daughter move for the first time, everything changed, Rachel. This stopped being a transaction, and I don't know what to do about that. Rachel's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying I care about you. About both of you. In ways I've spent my entire life avoiding because caring meant vulnerability, but here we are and I can't pretend anymore. Jun Hyuk's voice roughened. The thought of you walking away in 3 months, of never seeing you again, of raising our daughter alone, it's unbearable. And I don't know if that's love or obsession or just desperation, but it's real. Tears pricked Rachel's eyes. Jun Hyuk, I'm not asking you to stay. I don't have that right. You signed up for 9 months, not a lifetime. But I needed you to know that this matters. You matter. Rachel's hand found his cheek, feeling the tension in his jaw. You absolute idiot. Of course I'm not walking away. Jun Hyuk froze. What? Did you really think I could carry your daughter for 9 months, live in your house, watch you transform yourself, and then just leave? Hand over the baby like she's a package delivery? Rachel laughed wetly. I'm terrified, Jun Hyuk. Terrified of your world, of the danger, of everything this means. But I'm more terrified of not being here, of missing her first steps, her first words, of you trying to do this alone. You want to stay? Raise her together? If you'll have me. If you can handle me inserting myself into your life permanently and questioning your decisions and forcing you to be better than you think you can be. Rachel. Jun Hyuk pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. I don't deserve you. Don't deserve either of you. Probably not. But you're getting us anyway. She felt his arms wrap around her carefully, mindfully of her belly. We'll figure out the details. How to keep her safe. How to give her a normal life despite your business. But we'll do it together. Together. Jun Hyuk repeated the word like a prayer. I've never had together before. Well, get used to it, because you're stuck with me now. He kissed her then, tentative at first, like he was afraid she might break, then deeper as Rachel pressed closer. It was their first kiss, electric and overwhelming, and full of every complicated emotion they'd been dancing around for months. When they finally broke apart, Jun Hyuk's eyes were bright with something that looked dangerously like hope. I love you, he said simply. I don't know how to love. But with you, I want to learn. Then learn. We have a lifetime for you to figure it out. The next months passed in a blur of preparation and transformation. Jun Hyuk began systematically distancing himself from the most dangerous aspects of his business, setting up legitimate fronts, building legal enterprises that could eventually replace the criminal ones. It would take years, but he was committed. For her, he told Rachel during late-night conversations, his hand on her swollen belly, I want her to be proud of her father, not ashamed. They converted one of the estate's rooms into a nursery. Rachel insisted on helping, despite Jun Hyuk's protests about her doing too much. Pale yellow walls, white furniture, soft blankets. Normal, safe, far from the violence that had defined Jun-hyuk's life. Victoria and Brandon visited regularly now, cleared by security and shocked by the full story. Victoria had taken one look at Jun-hyuk, raised an eyebrow and said, "You better be good to my granddaughter and great-granddaughter, young man. I don't care how powerful you are." Jun-hyuk had actually looked nervous. "Yes, Mum." Chloe was ecstatic. "Girl, you landed a rich, protective crime boss who's going straight for you. That's romance novel territory." "It's complicated," Rachel protested. "Honey, all the best love stories are." At week 38, Rachel woke to contractions. Jun-hyuk went pale, then into hyper-focused action mode, calling Dr. Ji Hai, assembling security, preparing for the drive to the private clinic. His hands shook as he helped Rachel to the car. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "Good. That means you're human." Rachel squeezed his hand through another contraction. "Let's go meet our daughter." Labor was long, painful, and ultimately triumphant. Dr. Ji Hai delivered a healthy baby girl at 3:47 a.m., 7 pounds 2 ounces, with dark hair and her father's intense eyes and her mother's beautiful brown skin. When the nurse placed her in Jun-hyuk's arms for the first time, Rachel watched his entire world recalibrate. He stared at his daughter with absolute wonder and terror and overwhelming love. "She's perfect," he whispered. "Rachel, she's perfect." "She is." Rachel reached up to touch the baby's tiny hand. "What should we name her?" Jun-hyuk looked at Rachel, this woman who'd transformed his entire existence. "Grace, because that's what you both gave me. Grace I never deserved but will spend my life earning." "Grace Kang Williams." Rachel tested it out. "I like it." Jun-hyuk carefully placed baby Grace in Rachel's arms, then sat on the edge of the bed, one arm around Rachel's shoulders, the other hand gently touching his daughter's head. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for everything, for choosing to stay, for believing I could be better, for giving me a family. Thank you for proving me right." Rachel kissed him softly. "We're going to be okay, Jun-hyuk, all three of us." And somehow, despite everything, Rachel believed it. 2 years later. The house on Magnolia Street had never sounded happier. Grace's delighted squeals filled the living room as she toddled after her Uncle Brandon, who was making exaggerated monster noises. Victoria sat in her favorite chair, watching with the satisfied expression of a matriarch who'd seen her family through storms and into sunshine. Rachel stood in the kitchen doorway, one hand on her growing belly, 6 months pregnant with their second daughter, watching the scene unfold. Jun-hyuk came up behind her, arms wrapping carefully around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. "She's going to be a terror," he murmured, watching Grace dramatically fall over laughing. "Wonder where she gets that from," Rachel teased. Jun-hyuk had kept his promise. The transition was ongoing, legitimate businesses slowly replacing illegal ones, connections maintained but violence minimized. He'd made enemies with his choices, but he'd also gained respect. The man who'd been willing to change for his family, to choose love over power. They'd gotten married quietly 6 months after Grace's birth, a small ceremony with only close family. No big production, just vows spoken with absolute sincerity. Jun-hyuk had cried, first time Rachel had seen it, when she'd agreed to be his wife. "I never thought I'd have this," he admitted, kissing Rachel's temple. "A family, a home, a life worth protecting that isn't built on fear." "You're getting soft, Kang. Only for you three. Everyone else should still be very afraid of me." Rachel laughed, turning in his arms to kiss him properly. Grace noticed and came running over, demanding to be picked up. Jun-hyuk lifted her easily, and she immediately grabbed his face with sticky hands. "Daddy, play!" "In a minute, sweetheart. Daddy's talking to Mummy." "No, play now." Jun-hyuk looked at Rachel helplessly. She grinned. "You heard your daughter. She's the boss now. God help us all." Jun-hyuk muttered, but he was smiling as Grace dragged him toward the living room. Rachel watched them go. This man who'd been so terrified of love, now completely wrapped around their daughter's tiny finger. Watched Victoria's proud expression, Brandon's easy affection with his niece, the life they'd built from impossible circumstances. She thought about that day in the coffee shop, when a dangerous stranger had offered her a way out of desperation. She'd had no idea that accepting would lead here, to love, to family, to a future she'd never dared imagine. Sometimes the best love stories started with the most unlikely propositions. Sometimes strength meant choosing vulnerability. Sometimes the scariest risks led to the greatest rewards. Rachel placed a hand on her belly, feeling their second daughter move. Grace was already demanding a sister she could boss around, Jun-hyuk's words, delivered with fond exasperation. "You coming?" Jun-hyuk called from the living room. Yeah, Rachel called back. I'm coming. She joined her family, the one she'd been born into and the one she'd chosen, and let herself be pulled into Grace's elaborate game. Outside, the sun set over Atlanta, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. And inside, in a house filled with laughter and love and second chances, the Williams-Kang family wrote their next chapter together.